All right, folks, welcome back to this video on how to install your cams into the Automata box. So let's start with a little bit of housekeeping. We should have these cams that you put in here last time. They should be linked. Okay, that means that these are linked back to your original part. If you change something in your part, let's talk about that. So I'll go in and let's say I make my eccentric cam. I'm gonna just open that document. And let's say I go back into my, modify my parameters and I make my diameter 5 inches. This is just for grins. And then I have to save it. But if I save that and then go back into my Automata here, it has a little update button. It says something needs to be updated. And I click on that and it will update that part because it is linked to that part. So that is a good thing if I want to be able to change things. So I'll go back to my eccentric cam, undo what I did, save that. We'll go back to our Automata and update, and it will go back. All right, so let's do a little bit of housekeeping. I would like you to do this in two ways. It doesn't matter what order you go in. One of the ways, and this will work especially if you're not linked here. Okay, if you if you unlink these for some reason, you can come in and click on that part. I might have to do it from your browser. So can hover over that. I'm going to go to my eccentric cam, right click, and there's an edit in place button. So you can actually I usually choose revert position because it doesn't create a new icon down here in my timeline. So it doesn't really matter. Associativity is okay. So, and now you can see it's showing that I've kind of blurred everything else out, and I'm looking just at the eccentric cam and just looking down here at the timeline for what was made for the eccentric cam. So for that thing, I'm going to right click, change appearance. I might actually be able to do that without editing it. We'll find out. And I'd like you to make these things different colors. You choose what colors you want. Doesn't really matter to me. And let's just make them. I thought I did that. Did it not work? Let me try that again. There we go. And then we can say finish edit in place up here. And for whatever reason, things are stacking on top of each other. And you can edit in place. Now I'm not sure, I might actually be able to just edit the appearance. Yeah, I can. Now I think doing this might only do this in the assembly environment. So if I actually want to change the thing back in its regular environment, if I go to the eccentric cam, it should be nope, it's only taking place in the environment. So it's fine. We can just right click. So I want to edit the appearance and just start making things different colors. You do you so that nobody else matches yours. And by the way, while it's kind of cool to make things out of glass or something clear, please don't, because it makes it hard for me to see. You can do that later when you're doing something else. So choose something other than, let's go, made that out of granite, but you can do whatever you want. All right. So now we're going to talk about how to put these guys into our box. So first of all, we're going to need some holes for the risers up here that these are going to push up and down. And we're going to need a sketch. So start off by making a sketch on the top of the box. Okay. Again, I usually choose revert position. Make sure we're looking down at the top. All right. Now we're going to need to project the geometry. Actually, whoops, I made a mistake, so you made a mistake. Let's finish sketch. Kind of messed up on something here. I need an axis through this shaft. So let's go up here to construct. Again, I got out of the sketch. I need an axis through a cylinder. choose the cylinder, and it's going to make that axis through there. We need that. Okay. Now let's go back to the sketch. Actually, let's drag this axis. This is going to be important before the sketch. Okay. Otherwise, when I'm in my sketch, it won't recognize that axis. Now we're going to double click on the sketch to go back to it. There's that axis. Now I need to create a couple projections. We're going to create projection. You could have clicked just P, and I want to project that axis. Now, careful with the next one. I'm going to rotate around, and I want to also project this inside edge that represents the edge of this. You could probably just click on that face. There we go. So I need those two things, this face and that axis, and click OK. Now we're going to, again, go back to the top view. Now that gives me some things to be able to hook up some points to. So we're going to create 5 points here. Start way over here on the right. Click, and we're going to put 5 in a row. Click, make sure that little X shows up. Now be careful if you're in the middle. See that triangle? Do not hook it to the midpoint. We're just going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kind of like that. Now they're over there just so I make sure that I'm doing the right thing in a row. I'm going to make each one of those an inch apart from each other from this line that we just made. So we're going to hit D for dimension. We're going to go from this line to that point and make that 1. Same thing with the rest of them. We can chain dimension if you want. Doesn't really matter. We're just getting a reference here to get these things in the right spot for now. You will change this later on. Now, this last one, we're going to make a little bit farther. We're going to make it, actually I take it back. We're going to make that shorter. We're going to make it 0.5. All right. That will work, I think. Okay. I want the hole there. Hold on, let me. Yes, that's the way I want it. So 1, 1, 1, 1, and 0.5. This will become clear later on. All right, we're going to finish sketch. And now we're going to put a hole on those points. Click hole. Okay. We want our extents to be a distance because we don't want to go all through everything. We're going to click all of those points. Right now the hole is huge. Not sure why that is. Very rare that we're going to need a 2-inch diameter hole. We're going to make that 0.25 because the risers are 1/4 of an inch. And our depth, we just need to make sure we get through this. So let's make that 1 inch. We're just making sure that we get through the whole thing. Okay. And we've got our 5 holes here. Good. Now we can turn off the that axis, just the visibility of it, which is under construction, just so it's not getting in our way. Now, one thing we need to do before we get started here is I need to make sure that the crank is in a polar direction, either straight up or straight across or straight down. So in your joints, let's expand that. Find that revolution joint where you made that this crank, and we're going to make sure that we're at a specific angle by right-click, edit joint. Now it should show you when you edit joint, when you put that on there, that we're at a 90 degree, -90, 0, something that made that either straight over or straight across. That's going to be important. It should say either 0, 90, 180, 270, or any negative one of those numbers to make sure that we are straight. Again, it doesn't matter if it's sticking horizontally, it just matters that it is in a straight polar direction. Now notice that goes back to where I had it before, but if I revert my position, come up here, revert position, notice it brings it back up straight. I want that. All right, so we're ready to start installing the cams. These will keep moving on me. First thing is, because we're going to have to line up our our cams and attach them to that shaft with a rigid joint so that they move with the shaft, I'm going to have to reference the end of the shaft. So you're going to need to make a measurement. Come up to inspect. We're going to click on the inside face of the box and then click on the flat part of the shaft. Now your number will be different than mine because your crank looks different. So it'll be a little bigger than that, but you have to remember that number. Write it down if you can't remember it, because we're going to have to add or subtract when we make our joints. So again, we're measuring the distance from this surface to that surface. All right, here we go. We're going to put these in order. Now, here's what's important. If we put this in with this straight up, again, I'm going to revert position, which also puts those guys back. I think I'll capture position here for me. You don't need to do that. Just to make sure that when I move things, revert will go back to where it was. All right, so we're going to start with the polygon cam, then the eccentric, then the pear, then the snail, and we'll do that circle one later. Will be a little bit trickier. So here we go. Every one of these, I want the shortest possible distance facing up towards the holes. So if you make a joint, what we want this time is between two faces. So we're going to click between two faces. We're going to click one side of the cam, flip around, click the other side of the cam, and finally hover into the center where you see that. And you can kind of see that it's going to make that connector right in the middle of that cam, which is what I want. And then I'm going to click on the end point of the shaft. Now it's going to put it there, but that's obviously not where I want it. So we're going to have to slide this along the shaft. Now notice I'm going in a negative direction. And remember, this was 1 inch. So I'm going to go, in this case, yours might be positive. It depends on how you put it together. Now I'm going to go -1, but then I also have to go more in the negative direction. So I'm going to say -1 minus whatever that number was that you had to remember from before. And okay. And now if I look at this and I go to my top view by clicking on the top of the view cube, zoomed away, I'm going to go to zoom, whoops, let's zoom to fit. And I look down in that hole, I should see that that surface is right there in the middle. Perfect. And I've got the shortest possible distance facing up. Now this might change for you if you're straight out like this. If your shaft ended up this way, you're going to have to turn that joint. And this won't happen for most of you, but it's possible. If that happens with your resting position of your cam or your crank, sorry, is to the side, either front or back, then you're going to have to change that joint. So I'm going to go edit that to show you this. Again, most of you don't have to do this, but we're going to have to also spin this. I believe it's 22.5 degrees, 22.5. See how that looks. Nope, it's 45 degrees. Do that again. 45. Oh, that's not right either. Hold on. I think we have to do some math here. I think since it's a hexagon and it's 6-sided, we have to put in, yeah, that's it, 60 degrees to change it so that it will be straight. Oh, that didn't do it either. Okay, don't go anywhere. I think maybe it's 30 degrees. That's what it is. So if your resting position of the crank is sideways, you'll have to change it to 30 degrees. But again, most of you don't have to do that. So I'm going to go back to my 0. All right. But again, shortest distance has to be facing up. All right. Now, next is going to be the eccentric cam. Again, joint. We want a rigid joint. My first one is between two faces. That face, other face, hover inside to get the middle of it, and connect it to the end of your crankshaft. Now, this time I'm going to have to go, and again, it wants a negative direction, but this time I'm going to go a 2, and because I'm going negative, it's minus that number. You might have plus. Oops. It's not that. It's that. Now, I have a problem. Right now, the way it is I have the largest size facing towards the hole, and I want the smallest distance facing to the hole. So I'm going to have to rotate this, in this case, 180 degrees to get that shortest distance facing upwards. You may have to do the same thing. Okay? Let's, you go ahead and put the pair in using the same methodology. And again, you might have to change the angle. Let's do the same with the snail. Now the snail's going to be a little tricky. Between two faces, go here, make our connector in the middle. Again, we're going to go here. Now it just so happens that the snail is going the right way when I crank this clockwise, right? I want this to spin this direction. So you might have to flip it if it's not doing that already. Now I'm at -4 plus that distance. And okay, now, right now, it is not, this shortest distance isn't facing up. So I'm going to go 90 degrees. Let's see what happens when I go 90. It might be -90. Yeah, I need to go -90. But if you look at this, right now it's kind of splitting the difference. So I don't want to go quite that far. Let's try -80 and see what happens. Let's try -70. Okay, let's do -75. I think what we want is so that shaft hits this part of the snail cam without hitting this part of the snail cam. So you might have to play around with that a little bit. -75 seems to work. Okay. And finally, this last one. Now, this one's a different offset because remember we made this a 1/2 inch less. So this time when we go and make our joint for the circle between two faces, hover in the middle. Again, I'm going to put it here. But this time I'm only going, I think it's -3.5, or I'm 5 inches now. It's 4.5 plus what you had. So for me, it's -4.5 minus that number that I had from before. Okay. And that should line up when I look at the top. I shouldn't see anything except those all centered and lined up. Perfect. All right. Now, the last thing that we're going to do is to show off to your teacher and get checked off is you're going to come up to your revolution joint that's in there and animate model. And it's going to show off that you've got the whole thing working. All right, good job, folks. Next time we'll talk about how to make the risers move with this.